Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend, and we have an ending to talk to you guys about. We are going to get into the ending of Todd Phillips' Joker, which has a bit of a twist that has you looking at the entire movie in a totally different way. Now that's all I'm going to say before we get into spoilers. So if you do not want to know anything at all about the ending of Todd Phillips' Joker movie, get out now. If you've seen it though, however, keep watching as we're going to break down a couple of theories as to what we think might have happened and what it all means. Before we do that though, do me a favor, go down and hit subscribe and turn on your notifications because we're doing ending videos like this all the time on our YouTube page and we want to make sure that you guys get to see every single one of them. So let's discuss what happens at the end of Joker. And by ending, I basically mean the time that he shows up on the talk show run by Murray Franklin, who's played by Robert De Niro in the film. Now, Arthur is invited to the talk show after he bombs in a local comedy club, and Murray uses that footage on his show as a way to sort of poke fun of him. Arthur gets a telephone call from a representative of the show and says, "Hey, Arthur, I think you've seen the bit of you on the show. We want you to come on, interact with Murray, and get an opportunity to come out and represent yourself on the show." But when Arthur shows up to go on Murray's talk show, he decides to introduce the persona of Joker, the makeup and purple-suited character that he's been creating in his mind this entire time. As you guys know, because you've seen the movie, the appearance goes about as dreadful as you can imagine, with Arthur confronting Murray and all of the people of Gotham over the way that they've let the city slide into chaos, and almost egging on more of the chaos by the people who he's starting to grow very fond of, the protesters and the rioters who are wearing the clown faces and masks in inspiration and almost tribute to the persona that Arthur has created. Murray does not get out of this talk show unscathed, as Arthur, dressed as Joker, shoots Murray right in the face on live TV. This, of course, triggers even more riots in the streets of Gotham, as the people who are protesting against the rich, such as Thomas Wayne and his family, continue to cause all sorts of problems in the streets of Gotham. While this is happening, we do see the Wayne family coming out of a local theater where they're watching a double feature, and they go into the back alley chased by a clown. Of course, the traditional origin of Batman is shown. The Waynes lose their lives, and Bruce is left hovering over the bodies of his dead parents. So now we know that there is going to be a Batman in this Gotham eventually. Following the shooting at Murray's talk show, though, Arthur is being brought in a convoy, we assume, to a police department. But before the car can actually get there, they are blindsided by what I believe is an ambulance, throwing the car into chaos. But Arthur survives. The clowns all gather around the wreckage of the car and they pull Arthur through the windshield and basically lay him on the front of the car. It's not a Christ-like pose, but it's enough to sort of show that they are responding to him coming to the scene of this accident, causing the accident, getting him out of police custody, and then rescuing him so that he can continue to go on to be a symbol of their chaos and of their carnage. We sort of smash cut from that opportunity of Arthur getting released by the rioting clowns to Arthur in a mental institution, or a hospital at the very least. It looks like a mental institution to me based on what he's wearing and the sterile white environment that he finds himself in. He's having a conversation with a therapist who's asking Arthur a bunch of questions, but Arthur doesn't want to play along with this sort of investigation. He basically is laughing in his uncontrolled bouts of cackling, which we've seen him do throughout the course of the entire movie. But so much of what we've seen Arthur do is misdirection. We're never quite sure what's real and what isn't real because of relationships that we've seen him have. Every time something sort of contradicts what we've seen before, we start to question how much of what Arthur is saying is real or not. So he's laughing and the therapist asks him what he's laughing about. And Arthur says, I just thought of a joke. Essentially, he says, well, you wouldn't get it. The movie ends as Arthur comes running out of the room, and we notice there's footprints on the ground following him. It looks to be bloody footprints, so we wonder if maybe he killed the therapist or the doctor that he's in that room with. He goes sprinting through the hallways around the corners of the institution, and the credits start to roll as we kind of wonder what's going to go on with Arthur and Joker. Is he free? Is he contained? Is he running wild? Or is all of this in his head?
You don't listen, do you? All I have are negative thoughts.
Now, if we were just to discuss the ending of Joker as a clear-cut finish to the movie, we would assume that Arthur has actually killed Murray on the talk show, was saved by the clowns, but somehow detained later on, and because of his criminal activity and psychotic behavior was detained to a mental institute where he would be studied further. And then Arthur could potentially, as we said, might have killed that doctor or therapist and is now running through the halls of what I would assume might be Arkham Asylum as he's leaving bloody footprints behind him. This would be a very clear-cut ending that everything that we watched up until the final scene actually did happen, that Arthur is sort of dealing with the repercussions of his actions both on the talk show and the riots that he has basically incited in Gotham. And we've seen the birth of the Joker, that his appearance on the talk show was the first actual appearance of Joker in his Joker makeup, that Gotham is behind the idea of a Joker who's out there inciting chaos and stirring the pot against the wealthy in the city, and that eventually he will come face to face with a crime fighter known as Batman who wants to come in and clean up Gotham City, which is something that clearly the Joker and Arthur do not want to happen. However, because of the ambiguous way that the movie ends, there is another interpretation that you can do with what Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix are trying to do in Joker, and as the two of them have done press, they are very adamant about not answering the question about whether or not what we saw in the entire movie is real or not, because they'd rather have people have this discussion. So let's have the discussion. If Arthur is having a laugh over a joke that he has in his mind, is it possible that the joke that he's thinking about in that final confrontation with the therapist is the actions that we witnessed in the movie? And I'll say it this way. Arthur and Joker have proven to be a narrator that we essentially can't trust. We've watched multiple things happen in the course of the film that the film then goes the extra step to show us are not real. Significantly, his relationship with Zazie Beetz' character, his neighbor, which we see them together multiple times throughout the course of the movie to suggest that not that they're dating necessarily, but that they at least know each other. And that leads us to the really creepy scene later where Arthur shows up in her apartment, and it's made very, very clear that she does not necessarily know who he is. She recognizes him. This is my creepy neighbor, the guy who lives down the hallway, but no way have we interacted with him. And then Todd Phillips even goes so far as to show us in those scenes, he replays them and shows us that Arthur was by himself this whole time and not with Zazie Beetz. The other bit is the bit with the talk show, whereas when we do see Arthur watching the show, he has this entire inner monologue about what might have happened if he was in the audience of Murray's show, and if Murray recognized him and called him up to the stage and interacted with him in a way that would sort of have the public recognize who Arthur is. We snap out of that dream and Arthur is still in the hospital room with his mother, so none of that has happened, which suggests that there are multiple times that Todd Phillips is happy to take us into the brain of Arthur and show us that what we're watching is not real. Now, the fact that they're tied to both Zazie Beetz' character and the character of Murray could lead you to believe that Arthur never really showed up on Murray's talk show at all. And I'll tell you why I sort of believe that, but don't want to accept it. The minute that Arthur's answering machine received the call from Murray's people, I thought that was pretty convenient. It struck me as something that it's possible that a national talk show might want to have a local comedian who they poked fun of on their show. Stranger things have absolutely happened, but it just seemed very convenient that this talk show that Arthur worshipped wanted him to come on the show right around the time that he was mentally transitioning into the deranged character of Joker. Now, again, it sets itself up really nicely, and when you watch the talk show sequence, knowing now that there's a possibility that it might not be happening, there are moments that seem like they're going on a little bit too long. Arthur taking out the gun, for one thing, would you would assume shut the show down, but I have talked to people who work in local news that say that if this were to happen on their airs, they absolutely would keep the cameras running because it is news. The minute he kills Murray, however, though, that seems like it would throw everything into total chaos, and the movie does sort of go down those roads. But when you pay really close attention to everything that happens, I mainly want to believe that Arthur is responsible for the chaos that's unleashed in Gotham, but I think it is feasible that you can go after the fact that he just wants to believe in his mind that he is having enough of an impact on Gotham overall, that the people who are rioting are doing it for him, whereas up to this point he's also been somebody who's been completely ignored by society and might actually be the nothing that he fears that he is.
For my whole life, I didn't know if I even really existed. But I do. And people are starting to notice.
That is my interpretation of the Joker. I honestly want to believe with all of my heart that all of that stuff actually happened, that it didn't all take place in Arthur's brain, but I think it's going to take a couple of rewatches before I can finally make a solid decision on how I truly feel. How do you guys feel about it? What did you think about the twist ending of Joker, and what do you think it means about most of the movie that we watched? Head down in the comment section and please give us your in-depth, detailed explanation of why you think the ending of Joker is important. While you are down there, of course, do me a favor, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications. We always love to hear from you guys here at CinemaBlend, and every time we post an ending video like this, we want your feedback.